I just got back from Colorado, where obviously before I went, I got myself a very interesting haircut so I wouldn't have to deal with my hair. But while we were on that trip, me and my friend Dan were looking at a whole bunch of cars, especially Jeeps and a bunch of off-road trucks and so forth that were in the back roads in Colorado and in Moab, Utah. And I have to say, it really got the kind of romance of the off-road vehicle. Maybe it's a US thing, I don't know. But it was really exciting to think about how all of those cars would compare. And as it so happened, the new Ford Bronco, the 2020 or 2021 Ford Bronco, came out or was released while we were on the trip too. So it really got me thinking, like, which car or which truck would be the best option for doing the off-road thing. Also, just in terms of generally having a car or a truck that was more off-road capable. So I decided to do a comparison. So we are going to compare the Tesla Cybertruck to the four-door Jeep Wrangler Rubicon, to the Ford Bronco Wildtrak Edition, to the Toyota Tacoma TRD Pro Off-Road Edition. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. This channel is dedicated to finding out whether I really do know it all or not. If you do enjoy this video, definitely make sure you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe. It helps YouTube's algorithm so that other people can find this video, which hopefully you will think is worth them finding. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. And to the people who've already subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Anyway, onto the content of this video. I'm going to spend a lot of time with this going over a spreadsheet, which is rather boring, but I wanted to sort of introduce the reasons why I was looking at these particular automobiles first. So first of all, the Cybertruck, well, as you might know from this video or others, I have a $100 deposit down on the Cybertruck. I'm quite interested in it. But as I was looking at other vehicles that were in the similar vein to the Cybertruck, I started thinking, like, wow, is that really the best deal? Should I be looking at something else? Is something else a demonstrably better vehicle than this or not? So, of course, that got me thinking, well, what's a good comparison? So I decided to start off to try to find something relatively apples to apples comparisons. As it turned out, and everything's in US dollars, of course, since I live in the United States, but all four of these vehicles are very, very close in price. They're either just below or just above $50,000. So I think that's a rather interesting factor. It also explains why the Ford Bronco and why the Tesla Cybertruck are hitting that price point. Now I'm looking at the Cybertruck 2-motor version because that's all-wheel drive. It's got a front and a back motor, and that seems to be the best comparison with the other two. I could, of course, look at the single motor or the 3-motor version, but that kind of changes things around. Anyway, so what I'm looking at, all three of these guys are coming in right around $50,000 US, and I think that makes for a reasonable comparison. My buddy asked me why I didn't include the Land Rover Defender. One of them is just tiredness, because it's a lot of effort to go through and find all of this information on all of these vehicles. But another one is that the Defender, even though it starts off with a base price of about $50,000, becomes significantly more expensive once you add a lot of these options on. So anyway, if somebody in the comments wants to do like a spreadsheet of the same factors for the Defender, that would be super cool. That would be a really interesting thing to add to it. Anyway, without further ado, let's take a look at the spreadsheet, let's look at the numbers, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about my conclusions about the whole thing. Alrighty, so here we go. I've got this sort of broken down a little bit. It definitely took a while to find this, and some of these numbers are for sure question marks because some with unreleased vehicles it's difficult to know exactly what. But anyway, going across the top, we've got Cybertruck, the Wrangler 4-door, the Bronco 4-door, the Tacoma, and the notes are really not that useful. But anyway, and then here we've got kind of a basic comparison of the automobiles, and down here we've got an off-road comparison of the vehicles. So looking at this, just to start with, the purchase price of the Cybertruck is $49,900. The sale cost is $49,900 because it's a Cybertruck, it's a Tesla, you're going to pay what you get. The Wrangler 4-door Rubicon that I have, the trim package that I have, oh, by the way, yeah, the Cybertruck is a 2-motor version. The Rubicon is about $50,075. I assume that you would be able to knock off $6,000 about at the dealership for that cost of that vehicle. So I'm just going to say it's approximately $44,000 to actually purchase. The Ford Bronco is $48,875. It's unknown whether you'll be able to get anything off of that for a while, so I'm just going to leave it at that price for now. It actually is about the cheapest. Actually, it's about the Tacoma here anyway. But the Tacoma's $48,833 for the TRD Pro package. And again, I'm going to assume you can get somewhere around $6,000 off. So about $43,000 to purchase that car. So, you know, that's where I'm starting with. That's the purchase price. Next question is whether they're all-wheel drive. These three, of course, are. The Cybertruck is in quotation marks. That's just because it effectively is. It's got two separate motors, one in the front, one in the back. So it's basically a four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive vehicle. So there you go. Trim and package, two-motor version, Rubicon Wildtrak TRD Pro. The Wildtrak, the reason I said Wildtrak instead of the Black Diamond is that the Wildtrak includes the Sasquatch package, which I think is important for the comparison here. And I don't know exactly how much that option would cost without including it, so I just did the Wildtrak. The number of passengers, the Wrangler, the Bronco, and the Tacoma are all 5. The Cybertruck claims to be 6. I assume that's because you don't need a drive element in the front seat, so you can sit 3-3. That's my assumption. I think that's the way it works. As far as cargo space is concerned, you've got 100 cubic feet of external storage, which means the bed of the truck that's covered over, which is a huge amount. The Wrangler has 72.4, assuming the seats are folded down. So that actually means you've only got 2 people plus 72.4. You've got 6 people plus 100 here. So in terms of storage space and like hauling things, yeah, you can see the Cybertruck actually wins pretty handily here. The Bronco 4-door has, again, 77.6, so it's a little bit more than the Wrangler, but that, again, assumes that you've got the folded seats, so you've only got 2 passengers plus that. And, of course, the Tacoma has 47 cubic feet of external storage and a 5-foot bed. The bed length, of course, for the Cybertruck is 6.5 feet. So anyway, you can see where that makes a difference. But you can seat 5 people and have 47 cubic feet of storage. So that is difference. So these two, you have to reduce your seating capabilities in order to get this storage. If you don't, it's in the 30-something cubic feet. So it's substantially less than the trucks if you want to have 5 passengers. The engines, the Cybertruck has 2 electric engines. The Wrangler 4-door has a 3.6 liter V6. The Bronco 4-door has a 2.7-liter EcoBoost engine. I don't know why it's called EcoBoost, because if you look down at the miles per gallon or EPA rating, it's the same. Anyway, the Tacoma has a 3.5-liter V6. The transmissions are direct transmission for the electric vehicle, an 8-speed automatic for the Wrangler. You can choose to have, I think it's a 7-speed manual for the Wrangler. Which would be a super cool option. I would love that. And I believe you can also pick that. You can pick that for any of these. I just went ahead and did an automatic transmission, but it would actually reduce the cost of these vehicles by about $1,000 each if you did the manual transmission option. But anyway, the Bronco 4-door has a 10-speed automatic transmission, and the Tacoma has a 6-speed automatic transmission. Tire size, and this is kind of max tire size for a lot of these guys. You can get smaller options on them. I don't know if that'll be the case with the Cybertruck, but anyway, I kind of maxed out the tires for them because why not? It's off-road, right? So you've got 35-inch tires for the Cybertruck and for the Bronco 4-door. For the Wrangler, you've got 32.7-inch tires, and for the Tacoma, there's 30.6-inch tires. As far as the power is concerned, this is a little bit of a question mark because, of course, it's an unreleased vehicle, but supposedly the Cybertruck has 690 horsepower, which is insane. If you look at the Wrangler, you've got 285, the Bronco has 310, which is quite respectable, and the Tacoma has 277. So clearly here in terms of power, if this is anything like accurate, then the Cybertruck just crushes the other ones. As far as torque, the maximum torque, again, the Cybertruck, assuming that this is the correct number, it's a little hard to find it, but 750 foot-pounds of torque versus 295, 400, and 265. So the Bronco is actually doing quite respectably in these areas. It's definitely the second best behind the Cybertruck, but the Cybertruck definitely wins in those specs. As far as the weight is concerned, the Cybertruck is somewhere between 5,500 and 7,000 pounds. Nobody knows exactly, but it was going to be substantially heavier than the other ones. The Bronco is unknown at this point, but I assume it's going to be in the low 4,000s. It just has to be based on these other ones. So again, the Wrangler is 4,160 and the Tacoma is 4,305. So this guy is going to be way, way, way heavier. As far as the miles per gallon, the EPA rating, it's MPG or MPG equivalent. The Cybertruck, 50 is a very, very low estimate. It might be closer to 90 EPA rating. So I don't know, but I went with a low one just for the comparison, just to, be conservative. The other ones are all 20 or 21 miles per gallon combined. So they're all right in that same area. So again, huge advantage to the Cybertruck. When we get down to the total cost of ownership, that's going to have a big effect on all of this stuff. It's going to definitely lower the total cost of ownership for the Cybertruck. As far as range, right now the 2-motor Cybertruck is listed at 300 plus miles. Maybe it'll get up a little bit more than that. I don't know. The Wrangler is really nice. It's got 430. The Tacoma is really nice. It's got 440. And the Bronco doesn't really have a quoted range, so I went with the Ford Ranger, which is an approximation of the Bronco, so 390. So, probably 400. But anyway, all three of these guys are within spitting distance of each other. The Cybertruck is quite a bit lower in the 2-motor version. The 3-motor version, of course, will get you 500 miles of range, but that's a $10,000 more expensive truck. So that's an unfair comparison. So for now, it loses definitely in the range area. And of course, fill-up speed. It would not take nearly as long to fill these guys up with gas as to fill this up with electricity. Just for fun, I decided to do the 0 to 60. This is not the kind of a car that you care about 0 to 60 that much, but if you look at it, the Cybertruck again crushes it, as you expect an electric engine car to do. It's going to be under 4.5 seconds, whereas the Wrangler is 6.7 and the Tacoma is 7.7 0 to 60, and the Bronco, I could not find any data on that. It says to be determined. So, but I expect it, if it's less than 6 seconds, it's going to be quite remarkable. But it does have a 310 horsepower engine, so it might actually be closer to 6 seconds. But anyway, in any case, the Cybertruck will crush it on that. Not that most people who are looking at off-road vehicles are too terribly worried about how fast their truck can get up to 60 miles an hour. But, if you're using it as a versatile, multi-purpose vehicle, then that's actually pretty cool. Okay, next we get into the technology packages. The Cybertruck has a 17-inch touchscreen. The Jeep has an 8.4-inch touchscreen, which I had to add $1,845 to the price of the car for. It does not come standard. The Bronco comes standard, or at least this version of the Bronco comes standard with a 12-inch touchscreen, and the Toyota Tacoma comes with an 8-inch touchscreen for this version of the car. As far as driver assist packages are concerned, autopilot is included with the Cybertruck. That is kind of highway level automation and so forth. There is a full self-driving option, but that at this point costs $8,000 extra, so I'm not including that in the comparison. But obviously these three do not have that option at all, so you can't even purchase that if you wish to. So anyway, but even the autopilot, the basic autopilot, is quite useful. I added the safety feature or trim onto the Wrangler 4-door, which was $1,000 basically, and that added a whole bunch of driver assist features. Copilot 360 is included with the Wildtrak version, so that again is kind of like autopilot, and Toyota Assist is included in the TRD Pro. So again, these are all more or less the same. I would say Tesla is a little more capable in terms of what it can do with its driver assist autopilot stuff, but that gives you some sort of comparison in the technology that's included with all four of these vehicles. Tow packages. All of these models include tow packages except the Wrangler. I had to spend an extra $800 to buy the Wrangler tow package. Again, you can see why that suddenly bumped this guy up to about $50,000, because it started off cheaper than all the others, but having to add this and this and this ended up adding quite a bit of money to the Wrangler package. Towing capacity. There is no question that if it comes out the way it says it's going to, the Cybertruck is going to crush the others. It says 10,000 pounds plus right now. It might actually be more. The Wrangler and the Bronco are at 3,500 with their towing packages, and of course the Tacoma as a truck is better than that at 6,400 pounds. The max payload, which means how much weight you can actually put on the vehicle itself, for the Cybertruck, again, it's 3,500 pounds. The Wrangler 4-door is 1,233 pounds. The Bronco 4-door is 1,200. I believe it's actually 1,237. I think I made a mistake there. I think that should be 1,237. And the Tacoma I couldn't find. I'm going to have to look that up again. I need to figure out that is what it is. But I think it's on the order of about 1,300 pounds, but I have to check that. So I'll just put it down at the bottom. I'll put a little note down at the bottom, but whatever that is. As far as the aesthetics are concerned, this is something that's not, this is entirely personal, but I just sort of gave like an indication of that. The Cybertruck is hyper angular and straight lines and so forth. The The Wrangler is traditional Jeep looking, which makes sense. It looks like a Jeep. I would say the Bronco is kind of Land Rover-esque. It has that sort of look, the way the headlights are, the way it's mounted, or perhaps a Toyota FJ Cruiser back when they used to make those, but something in that kind of line. It's a little traditional looking. It's kind of cool and retro styling. And of course, the Tacoma is a truck. It looks like a truck. So there you go. That's what you got. This line, which is the total cost of ownership, assuming that you drive the car for 5 years and 75,000 miles, this is obviously quite speculative, especially since 2 of these models have not even been released yet. So, I'm taking guesses here, so take this with a grain of salt, but I did the best I could in terms of this. Okay, so what did I do? The fuel or electricity, in other words, filling it up and driving it. Oil changes every 7,500 miles. 4 new tires, because I figure if you get 40,000 miles out of each set, you're going to have to replace the tires once. And required service, and then resale value of the vehicle. That is perhaps the most speculative aspect of this, because we don't know how much these things are going to resell for in 5 years. So what did I discover from this? Well, if you look at the Cybertruck, you've got electricity. I actually doubled this. In Georgia, you can get overnight charging. I think it's between midnight and 6 a.m. It will charge for 1 penny per kilowatt hour, which is insane. So I doubled that because I figured you're going to go to some charging stations and maybe you won't charge it overnight all the time, whatever. So anyway, this is at 2 cents a kilowatt hour. That's $484 for to fill it up for 5 years. There's no oil changes. The tires are really expensive. I think you could probably do better than this, but what I found was $1,300 to replace those tires and $1,000 for service over the years. And then I'm assuming a 60% resale value. I think that's reasonable. Actually, I think it's incredibly conservative. It looks like Model S's, which are the only cars that have been out for long enough to have been around for 5 years, are actually selling at closer to 70% with 70,000 miles or so on them. So anyway, this is a very conservative number, but with all those numbers, if you subtract out, so you buy the car, you pay all this stuff, and then you sell the car, and you end up having spent $22,744 or about $45.50 per year. So that's how much it would cost to drive this car. All of the same things for the Wrangler 4-door is going to cost you. The gas is the big thing. I mean, that's $10,000, $10,000, and $9,000. $9,400 basically. But anyway, it's a huge chunk of change. Plus the fact the oil changes actually cost a decent amount. That's assuming 9 oil changes at $70 a piece. And I assume that the service costs will be a little bit more over 5 years as well. The tires on the Wrangler are cheaper, and the tires on the Tacoma are definitely cheaper. The Bronco has 35-inch tires, so I just went with the same tires for the Bronco, which actually might explain why it's a little bit more expensive than the other ones, because $1,300 is a lot of money for tires. But anyway, if you look at that, $28,205 or $56.40 per year, $32,885 or $65.70 per year for the Bronco, and $31,095 or $62.20 per year for the Tacoma. So you can see that the Cybertruck wins drastically over the others, but interestingly enough, the Jeep actually comes in second. So that's pretty cool. Now, let's turn to a specific off-road comparison. So first of all, the body type. The others are body on frame. They're truck bodies, and they're all pretty similar in terms of their frame. The Cybertruck, of course, is the outlier with an exoskeleton. As far as the durability, the ride, etc., who knows? We're kind of have to wait and see how that all works out. One thing that might make a difference is the fact that the Cybertruck actually has air suspension, which should give it a much, much smoother ride than the other cars. The other cars are more or less the same. They all have they basically have spring over coils or something like that, or potentially leaf springs on the back. So they all have some sort of spring, leaf spring sort of combination for their suspension. As far as lockable axles, I would say yes with a question mark with the Cybertruck. I believe that's the case. It looks like they have a locking differential. It's a little hard to tell, but it may also be handled by technology. They may actually use software to do some of that instead of actually locking it physically. The other three, of course, all have locking differentials on the front and the back. As far as wheelbase is concerned, you can see that the Bronco and the Wrangler are relatively short vehicles, and then the Tacoma is an in-between, and then the Cybertruck just is a monstrously long vehicle, 150 inches basically. So that's crazy. It's, it's like, what, 30 inches more than these two guys, and 20 inches more than the Tacoma. So it is a big, big car, which is why apparently it won't fit in many people's garages. But there you go. That's what gives you all of this extra capacity for carrying things and so forth up there, is the fact that it's a really big car. As far as clearance is concerned, the Cybertruck wins very handily in the clearance. This is how much room there is between the ground and the base of the undercarriage of the car. It's 16 inches versus 11.5, 10.8, and 9.4. The Tacoma clearly comes in last place in that, so it doesn't have monstrous clearance. Part of that is because it's got much smaller tires than the other cars. The fording depth, this is how much water you can safely drive over. You can see the other cars are around 30 inches, 33, 27 and a half. The Cybertruck doesn't really have a rating at this point, but Elon Musk said it would float. So I've seen people throw around 36 inches plus, so it will definitely be greater than 3 feet or 1 meter, which is kind of crazy. It might actually be able to kind of sort of drive underwater depending on how waterproof the batteries and everything else are. So that's kind of nutty. So if fording makes a difference to you, then definitely the Cybertruck would win that battle. Okay, so the approach, departure, and breakover angles. What that means is how steep of an angle can you drive the truck or car into, how steep of an angle can you drive out of, and how steep of an angle can you drive over. So that's approach, departure, and breakover angles. So looking at all of these guys, you can see that the Wrangler and the Bronco are clear winners in this. The Tacoma is more like the Cybertruck, but you can also see the Cybertruck actually beats it, even though it's got a longer wheelbase. It actually has a higher departure angle, a higher approach angle, and a higher breakover. But if you really, really care about the serious off-roading, you're going to have to go with one of these two options here, the Bronco or the Wrangler. There's not really an awful lot of difference between the two of them. They're very, very similar, although the departure angle of the Bronco is quite like damn. Anyway, so you can see you get a better approach angle with the Jeep, but you get a better departure angle with the Bronco, and interestingly enough, you actually get a very good departure angle with the Cybertruck, probably because it just has the wheels are very, very close to the back of the truck. As far as the drive ratio is concerned, there's really not a drive ratio for the Cybertruck because it's kind of a direct drive. The other ones are 4.7 to 1 for the Wrangler and the Bronco, and about 4 to 1 for the Tacoma. So that just gives you a sense of how much torque you can put on the road given a specific circumstance where you're going at low speed. Also, is there underbody support? According to the visits to the Peterson Museum, where people have actually taken videos of the Cybertruck from underneath, yes, there is. For the Wrangler, the Tacoma, and the Bronco, in the trim packages that I've got here, they all have undercarriage armor or something like that, some sort of plates that allow you to drive over rocks and stuff and scrape them up without messing up the actual sensitive underbelly of these vehicles. So yes, for all of those, as far as I can tell. And finally, aftermarket support. So unknown with the Cybertruck, I would imagine eventually there will be quite a bit, but it could be quite limited at release. For the Ford Bronco, they've promised that there's going to be at least 200 parts to start. I'm sure there will be more than that by the time they launch. The Tacoma has quite a bit of aftermarket support, and the Jeep just has an insane amount of aftermarket support. So again, if you care about aftermarket support and lift kits and all sorts of fun stuff to put on this, then obviously the Jeep is the winner for that. If you don't care so much and you're just going to use the stock vehicle, then that doesn't matter very much at all. Okay, so that was a lot of numbers. What did I end up finding out from that? One of them is, the one clear thing is, if you're really, really into total cost of ownership, there's just no doubt that, at least with the numbers I was using, the Tesla Cybertruck is the clear winner. It's up to $10,000 less to own. Now, of course, that's taking into account the resale value of the vehicle, and it's also not taking into account that you potentially might be able to get even better deals on some of these other vehicles. The Cybertruck is $49,900. That's what you're going to pay. You can't wheel and deal at the dealership. If you can shave off another $5,000 for some of these vehicles and make them even cheaper, then yeah, that starts to change the equation somewhat. But anyway, at least with the numbers I was using, the TCO of the Cybertruck is substantially lower than any gas-powered vehicle. So that's rather interesting. Another thing that's interesting, this is not going in the Cybertruck's favor, just in case you think I'm always going for that, is that the range of the Cybertruck is substantially less than the other vehicles. So if you're really looking for that, like going off in the woods, and you need 400 plus miles range or something like that, then yeah, Cybertruck is probably not for you. Now, of course, you could get the 3-motor version. You could spend another $10,000 and you could increase your range, and that would improve it. But all of these cars, that's an unfair thing to do because you're adding $10,000 to it. So, that's not right. So anyway, in this comparison, at least, it makes a lot more sense to purchase a gas-powered car if you're super worried about the range that's involved. I think another thing that's interesting is the approach, departure, and breakover angles are all reasonably similar. The Cybertruck actually does rather well for a truck, considering that its wheelbase is outrageously long compared to the other vehicles. But compared to the Tacoma, it's actually right in there in terms of all of those angles. Now, obviously, the Jeep and the Bronco are going to be clear winners because they're simply smaller cars, and so their approach and departure angles are going to be better. If you care about fording depth, there's no question that the Cybertruck is going to be the clear winner with that. Potentially, it might be able to go over the doors. It's unclear. But Elon Musk has actually said that it might be able to float, which is a crazy thing, but there you go. So, overall conclusions, I think if you want something that's a utility vehicle that can kind of do it all, then having a truck body is really not a bad idea. The Cybertruck can house 6 people. It has a larger truck bed. It has more cubic feet of storage space. Just in general, it's a better vehicle for overall. If you only care about going off-road and doing the most hardcore crazy things, the Jeep is still a great idea. I think the Bronco is actually going to give it some really good run. And honestly, I love the Bronco's new styling. It's super cool looking. I'm a big fan. If you care about aesthetics, then that's a big thing. I know there are a lot of diehard Jeep users, and that doesn't matter to you, and the aesthetic of the Jeep is a better aesthetic, so totally fine. But I think, if you're going for the hardcore off-road, you need a Jeep-type body or a Bronco-type body. If you want something that's a little more versatile, that can do everything, a pickup truck body is quite useful. The Cybertruck is going to be very big. It's going to be very heavy. Whatever its eventual weight ends up being, it'll be heavier than all the other cars. But it's a lot cheaper to own, and it has a lot of advantages to it. And if you're doing some off-roading, then I would say the Cybertruck is the way to go. If you're doing hardcore off-roading, I don't know. Honestly, I like the Bronco. I really, really like the Bronco in terms of its look and everything like that. But I don't think I like it well enough, and I certainly don't do enough off-road activities to justify purchasing a Bronco over purchasing a Cybertruck when the cost of ownership is going to be, somewhere around $10,000 less to own the Cybertruck for 5 years. I just can't see that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, obviously, if it does to you, go ahead and purchase what you want to purchase, but I just figured I'd lay out the numbers for you and you could have some fun. I expect to get some arguments in the comments from the Toyota folks, the Land Rover folks, the Jeep folks, the Bronco folks, but that's just my conclusion. I'm quite satisfied with the purchase that I've made, but I'm not a big-time off-road kind of person. So if you're a super big off-road person, then by all means, let me know in the comments what you think. I'm quite interested to know what you all think. I hope you enjoyed this video. Even if you don't agree with my conclusions completely, at least you got all the numbers, and so you can argue the numbers till you're blue in the face, as can we all, right? If you did enjoy the video, definitely make sure you mash the thumbs up button and subscribe so other people can find this video. And definitely make sure you ask me more questions in the comments or at my email address, which is DrKnowItAllKnows@gmail.com. Till next time, bye-bye.